My husband wanted my sister to be his wife for a day. His brother wanted me for life. My husband Damien had this way of dropping bombs like he was asking me to pass the salt. We were eating dinner, pasta I'd made after a 12-hour day at the firm because Damien said he was too tired to cook even though he'd been home since 3. I was twirling spaghetti around my fork when he said, "So my 10-year reunion is next month and I need Nikki to come with me." I kept chewing because I assumed I'd misheard him. Nikki was my younger sister. Prettier than me by conventional standards, thinner than me by 15 pounds, and unemployed by choice for the last 2 years because she was finding herself on my dime. I paid her rent. I paid her car insurance. I paid for the highlights she got every 6 weeks because she said dark roots made her feel less confident. I didn't realize I was also paying for her to attend my husband's high school reunion too. I swallowed my pasta and said, "Why would Nikki be coming to your reunion?" Damien didn't even look up from his phone. "Because I need her there," he said, like that explained everything. I set my fork down and waited for him to elaborate because surely there was more to this sentence. There wasn't. He just kept scrolling through whatever app had his attention more than I did. "Damien," I said, and he finally looked up with that expression he always wore when I was about to inconvenience him with questions. "Why do you need my sister at your high school reunion instead of your actual wife?" He sighed like I was being exhausting, like I was the one who'd just said something insane over pasta. "Because I told everyone I married her," he said. "Back when we first started dating. My buddies met her once at that barbecue and they assumed she was my girlfriend. I never corrected them." I stared at him. I kept staring at him. I was waiting for the part where he laughed and said he was kidding, where this became some weird joke I didn't find funny but could at least categorize as humor. That part never came. "You told your friends you married my sister," I repeated slowly, making sure I understood the words coming out of his mouth. "It's not a big deal," he said, picking his fork back up like we were done discussing this. It was easier than explaining. "And honestly, babe, you know how those guys are. They're shallow. If they remember Nikki being hot and they've spent 10 years thinking I locked that down. I can't show up with someone different and explain that actually I married the other one. The other one. I'd graduated top of my class at law school. I'd made partner at 33. I'd bought us this house, the cars in our driveway, and every piece of furniture Damien was currently sitting on. And I was the other one." I could feel something cold spreading through my chest, but I kept my voice steady because that's what I did. I stayed calm. I was reasonable. I didn't make scenes. "So your solution," I said, "is to bring my sister as your fake wife to a reunion full of people I'll never meet. And I'm supposed to just be okay with that?" Damien reached across the table and grabbed my hand like he was comforting me through my own confusion. "It's one night," he said, squeezing my fingers. "Nobody will ever know. These people don't matter. I'll make it up to you, I promise. We'll do a nice dinner after, just us. Whatever restaurant you want." He smiled at me with those blue eyes that used to make my stomach flip, and I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. He thought I was stupid. He thought I was so desperate to keep him happy that I'd agree to anything if he just promised me a nice dinner afterward. And the worst part? He was probably right. He'd been training me to accept less since the day we met. "I don't know, Damien," I said, and I watched his face change from charm to irritation in half a second. "It just feels weird. Why can't you just tell them the truth?" He pulled his hand back. "Because I've been lying for 10 years, Carissa. What am I supposed to say now? Hey guys, funny story, I actually married her boring older sister who works all the time? That's humiliating. Boring, older, works all the time." Each word landed like a small punch to the chest, but I didn't react because I never reacted. I just absorbed it and kept functioning. That was my role in this marriage. Provider, absorber, the other one. "Besides," Damien continued, "Nikki already said yes. She's excited about it. She said it sounds fun." I blinked. "You already asked her? Before asking me?" He shrugged. I needed to make sure she was available first. Logistics. My sister had agreed to pretend to be my husband's wife. My sister, who I'd been financially supporting for 2 years, who called me crying every month about how hard her life was, who I'd given everything to because that's what big sisters did. She'd said yes to this without even calling me first. Damien must have seen something in my face because his expression softened into that fake concern he was so good at. "Babe, don't be upset. Nikki said you should be flattered that she's willing to help. She's doing this for us. For you, really. So I can network and maybe finally land something better than that cashier job you're always complaining about." I wasn't complaining about his cashier job. I was complaining about the fact that he'd had 4 cashier jobs in 3 years and quit each one because his managers didn't respect him. I was complaining about funding his life while he figured out what he wanted to be when he grew up at 34 years old. But somehow that had become me being unsupportive. Somehow everything always became my fault. "One night," Damien said again, watching me carefully now, seeing just how much more he needed to push. "Nobody gets hurt. And then we never talk about it again." "Okay." I nodded. I agreed to let Nikki pretend to be Damien's wife for one night at his reunion. I told myself it was harmless, Just an embarrassing lie he needed help covering up. But something about how quickly Nikki said yes kept nagging at me. How she already knew the date before I did. How comfortable Damien seemed asking his wife to step aside for her own sister. I decided I wasn't going to sit back and watch from the sidelines. I was going to insert myself right into their little rehearsals and see exactly how they acted when the wife they were replacing was standing in the room. I decided to help them rehearse because I wanted to see their faces when the wife they were pretending didn't exist walked into the room and offered to participate. I wanted to watch them squirm. I wanted Nikki to look guilty and Damien to stumble over his words, and both of them to realize how insane this whole situation was. So I came home early from work the next day and found them in my living room going over their story, and I said, I figured I could help. Give you feedback on what looks believable. They barely looked up. Damien said, sure, babe, and went right back to whatever Nikki was saying. I sat down in the chair across from them and waited for the awkwardness to settle in. It never did. They just kept going like I was part of the furniture in the house I paid for with money I earned while both of them contributed nothing. Okay, so when they ask how we met, Damien said, leaning toward Nikki with his elbows on his knees, I'll say I saw you across the room at a mutual friend's birthday party, and I knew right then I had to talk to you. I felt my whole body go rigid. That was how Damien and I met. I was standing by the window, and he walked up and said I looked like I was plotting my escape, and I laughed and we talked for 3 hours, and he asked for my number before I left. Wait, I said, and they both glanced at me like I'd interrupted something important. That's our story. That's how you and I actually met. The night that started our entire relationship. Damien shrugged. Exactly. I already know it by heart, so I won't mess up the details. Makes it easier. You want to use the story of how you met your wife to pretend you married someone else. You don't see anything wrong with that? Not really. It's practical. I turned to Nikki. And you're okay with this? Pretending you had the night that I actually had? The night I've told you about a dozen times because I thought my sister would care about the most important moment of my life? Nikki examined her nails. I mean, it's not like you own a story, Carissa. Things happen to lots of people the same way. It's not that deep. It happened to me. Specifically. With him. Your brother-in-law. And now we're borrowing it for one night. You'll get it back. She said it like I was being stingy with a sweater. Damien turned back to Nikki like the conversation was over. So after the party, I texted you the next day and asked if you wanted to get coffee. And I said yes, but I made you wait 3 days before we actually went, Nikki said, smiling at him like this was a fond memory she actually had. Because I didn't want to seem too eager. That was exactly what I did. I made him wait because my roommate told me 3 days was the minimum for not looking desperate. Nikki knew this story because I'd told her years ago, late at night, when I thought I was sharing something precious with my little sister. And now she was reciting it back to my husband like it belonged to her. I told you that story in confidence, I said to Nikki, when we were close. When I thought you actually cared about my life. Damien let out a loud sigh and turned to face me fully. You know what this is really about? You're so used to being the boss at work that you can't let anyone else have anything without controlling it. Everything has to go through Carissa. Everything has to be approved by Carissa. We can't even have a conversation without you hovering over it like a manager. This isn't about control. This is about you giving away my memories. See, there you go again. Your memories, your story, your life. He shook his head. Not everything belongs to you just because you were present for it. I was there too. It's my story as much as yours, and I can tell it however I want. Nikki nodded. He has a point. You can't copyright a relationship. I tried a different approach. Okay, well, what about the proposal? What are you going to say when people ask about that? Rooftop restaurant downtown, Damien said without hesitation. I had the ring hidden in my jacket pocket all night and I was so nervous I could barely eat. Then after dessert, I got down on one knee and the whole restaurant clapped. My engagement, my proposal, the happiest night of my life reduced to a script for my sister to memorize. That's literally what you did for me, I said, and my voice cracked in a way I hated. That's my proposal. I cried. You cried. The waiter brought us free champagne. I called my mom from the restaurant because I couldn't wait to tell her. That memory is mine, Damien. Ours. How can you just hand it to someone else? Damien's face twisted into something ugly. You know what, Carissa? You've always been jealous of Nikki. Ever since you were kids. She got more attention, she got more dates, she got more everything. And you've never gotten over it. He gestured at my sister. This isn't about the reunion. This is about you still competing with her after 30 years. I'm not competing with anyone. I'm asking why my husband is teaching my sister how to be me. Because she's willing to help without making it a federal case. He turned to Nikki with a softened expression. Unlike some people. Nikki reached over and squeezed his arm supportively. It's okay. She doesn't get it. You think this is easy for me? Damien's voice rose suddenly, like he was the one being wronged. I have to go back to these people and lie to their faces all night. I have to pretend my whole life turned out different than it did. But sure, Let's focus on how hard this is for you. Let's make it about Carissa's feelings like we always do. I stared at him. You created this situation. You're the one who lied for 10 years. And I'm trying to fix it without blowing up my entire social network. But you can't give me one night. After everything I do around here, you can't give me one single night without making it weird. 1. What exactly do you do around here? The question hung in the air. Damien's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Nikki jumped in. He supports you emotionally. He's here when you come home from your stressful job. He manages the house while you're working all the time. She said it like she was listing his accomplishments at a job interview. Not everything is about money, Carissa. I looked around at the house I paid for, the furniture I bought, the electricity and water and internet that came out of my account every month. Damien hadn't had a steady job in 3 years. The last time he managed the house, he forgot to pay the water bill and we got a shut-off notice. I already talked to Mom about this, Nikki added casually. She said you'd probably overreact. She thinks it's actually kind of sweet that Damien cared enough about his friend's opinions to keep up the story this long. You talked to our mother about this before I even knew it was happening? I needed advice. She gets it. I don't know why you can't. Damien seized on this immediately. See? Your own mother understands. Your own sister is willing to help. The only person with a problem is you. He paused and tilted his head. What does that tell you? I didn't have an answer. Or I had too many answers and none of them would come out right. Let's just keep practicing, Nikki said, dismissing me entirely. We don't have that much time left. They went back to it like I'd given them permission to continue robbing me in broad daylight. Damien walked Nikki through our first anniversary and the trip we took to the coast, and the time I surprised him at work with lunch. All things that happened to me. All moments I thought belonged to us. At one point I tried to interject again, to point out that the restaurant on our anniversary was French, not Italian, and Damien cut me off. Oh, here we go, he said, pitching his voice high in a cruel imitation of mine. Actually, Damien, that's not exactly right. Actually, Damien, you're telling it wrong. Actually, Damien, let me correct you in front of everyone like I always do. He looked at Nikki and they both laughed at me in my house. I was just trying to help you get the details right, I said quietly. We don't need your help, Nikki said, still smiling from the impression. We've got it handled. Why don't you go do some work or something? Isn't that what you're good at? I told myself to let it go. This was my husband and my sister. They were just stressed about the reunion. None of it meant anything. I was being sensitive. I went upstairs to change and gave myself 5 minutes to calm down. I washed my face, took deep breaths, told myself I was overreacting just like everyone kept saying. I was halfway down the stairs when I heard Nikki giggle. Not her normal laugh, but something softer. Private. I stopped on the landing and looked through the railing, and what I saw made my whole body go cold. Damien had his hand on Nikki's face. His thumb was tracing her cheekbone, and she was leaning into it with her eyes half closed, and their faces were inches apart. They were about to kiss. My husband and my sister in my living room in my house. I must have made a sound because they jumped apart like someone fired a gun. Nikki's face went red and Damien's hands flew up and they both started talking at once. It's not what it looks like, Damien said. We were just rehearsing, Nikki said. In case anyone asks about us being affectionate. I stood on the stairs looking down at them, and they looked back up with matching panic, trying very hard to become innocents. Right, I said slowly. Rehearsal. Damien's face relaxed into relief. Exactly. We got carried away practicing. It didn't mean anything. Nikki nodded quickly. We have to look like a real couple. That's literally all it was. I walked downstairs and sat back in my chair and watched them watch me, waiting to see what I would do. And I did nothing. I let them think I bought it, because I needed time to figure out what was actually happening before I said something I couldn't take back. But I wasn't overreacting anymore. Something was very wrong and I wasn't going to sleep on it. I wasn't going to give them time to align their stories or practice their excuses. Damien first while the panic was still fresh. Then Nikki, alone, without him there to feed her lines. If neither of them cracked, I'd find someone else in his life who'd seen what I was too blind to notice. Someone who owed him nothing. Someone with no reason to protect him. The truth was coming out tonight one way or another. Nikki left an hour later, and I followed Damien upstairs without saying a word. He went into the bathroom to brush his teeth like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just watched him almost kiss my sister. Like this was any other regular night in our marriage. I waited until he came out, and then I stepped in front of the bedroom door. Move, he said. No. He blinked at me like I'd spoken another language. In 10 years of marriage, I'd never blocked a door. I'd never stood in his way. And I'd never been anything but accommodating and reasonable and easy to walk around. Carissa, I'm tired. Move. You're not sleeping until you tell me what's going on with you and Nikki. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. We already explained that. It was rehearsal. You said you understood. I lied. I don't understand anything. I don't understand why my husband had his hands on my sister's face. I don't understand why she was leaning into him like she'd done it 100 times before. I don't understand why you two looked more comfortable together than you've looked with me in years. Damien tried to step around me, and I moved with him. His jaw tightened. You're being crazy right now. You know that, right? You're acting like a crazy person. Then explain it to me so I stop being crazy. Tell me one thing that makes sense. I already told you. We were practicing looking like a couple. That's literally all it was. Then why did you jump apart like I caught you doing something wrong? If it was just practice, you would have laughed it off. You wouldn't have panicked. He threw his hands up. What do you want me to say? That I'm sleeping with your sister? Is that what you need to hear so you can feel justified in this little meltdown you're having? Are you? The question hung between us. Damien stared at me, and I stared back, and for 3 seconds neither of us breathed. I can't believe you'd even ask me that. His voice went quiet and wounded like I was the one who'd hurt him. After all these years together. After everything we've built. You're going to stand there and accuse me of sleeping with Nikki because we got a little too into character during a rehearsal? You didn't answer the question. Because the question is insane. He was yelling now, and I didn't flinch. No, Carissa. No, I'm not sleeping with your sister. Happy? Can I go to bed now? He tried to push past me, and I grabbed his arm. My fingers dug into his bicep, and he stopped moving and looked down at my hand like he couldn't believe I was touching him without permission. Let go of me. Not until you look me in the eyes and tell me there's nothing between you two. He yanked his arm free, and his whole face changed. His lip curled up on one side, and his eyes went flat and cold, and he looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. You want to know what there is between us? Relief. That's what. Relief that I get to spend time with someone who doesn't interrogate me every time I breathe. Relief that I get to be around a woman who actually makes me feel good instead of making me feel like a failure every single day. I have never called you a failure. You don't have to. It's in everything you do. The way you sigh when you pay the bills. The way you mention your job every 5 minutes. The way you look at me like I'm a problem you're too tired to solve. He stepped closer and his voice dropped. Nikki doesn't look at me like that. Nikki thinks I'm worth something. Nikki doesn't pay your bills. See? There it is. Everything comes back to money with you. You can't even have a conversation without reminding me that you're the one with the checkbook. I'm reminding you that I'm the one with the checkbook because you seem to have forgotten who funds your life while you spend your days rehearsing romance with my sister. Damien's nostrils flared and his mouth pressed into a thin, hard line. You know what? I'm done. If you can't trust me after 10 years, then maybe we shouldn't be married anymore. The words landed exactly how he meant them to. A threat. A weapon. The nuclear option he knew I'd been avoiding my entire marriage. Is that what you want? I asked. Divorce? I want a wife who doesn't treat me like a suspect. If you can't be that, then yeah. Maybe divorce is exactly what I want. He pushed past me, and this time I let him. He grabbed a pillow and a blanket from the closet and walked out without looking back. I heard him go downstairs. Heard the couch creak as he threw himself onto it. Heard the TV turn on because even in the middle of a fight, he couldn't go 5 minutes without a screen. I stood in our bedroom doorway and realized something important. He hadn't denied it. He'd yelled. He'd deflected. He'd threatened divorce. But he never once looked me in the eyes and said there was nothing between him and Nikki. He couldn't. Because there was. I grabbed my keys and my purse and walked out the front door without telling him where I was going. He didn't ask. He didn't even look up from the TV. Nikki's apartment was 20 minutes away. I knew the route by heart because I'd driven there dozens of times with groceries when she said she couldn't afford food, with furniture when she said her place looked too empty, with a check for her security deposit when she first moved in because she'd blown through her savings on a trip to Cabo with friends. She called me crying 2 years ago, saying she was about to be homeless. I co-signed her lease. I covered her security deposit. I set up automatic transfers for her rent because she said dealing with money stressed her out. 2 years. $24,000. Plus her car insurance. Plus her phone bill. Plus random checks whenever she said she was struggling. I added it up once and stopped because the number made me sick. And the whole time I was funding her life, she was using that freedom to sleep with my husband. Every hour I spent at work to cover her bills was an hour she spent in my house with Damien. I parked in front of her building and took the stairs 2 at a time. It was almost 11 at night and I didn't care. I banged on her door hard enough that her neighbor opened theirs to see what was happening. Nikki, open the door, now. I heard movement inside. Footsteps. Then her voice, high and nervous. Carissa? What are you doing here? Open the door or I'll keep knocking until someone calls the cops. The lock clicked and the door opened 3 inches. Nikki's face appeared in the gap looking pale and scared. It's late. Can we talk tomorrow? No. I pushed the door hard and she stumbled backward as I walked into the apartment I funded. We're talking right now. You can't just barge in here. I pay your rent. I can do whatever I want. I looked around at the furniture I'd helped her pick out. The TV I'd bought her for Christmas. The couch where she probably sat texting my husband while I was at work paying for all of it. How long? Nikki wrapped her arms around herself. How long what? Don't play dumb with me. How long have you been sleeping with Damien? I'm not sleeping with Damien. I told you it was just rehearsal. Why won't you believe me? Because I saw your face when he touched you. I saw how natural it looked. That wasn't acting, Nikki. That was muscle memory. That was something you've done so many times your body did it without thinking. You're imagining things. Am I? Then explain why you know so much about my husband. Explain why you two have inside jokes I've never heard. Explain why he defends you more than he's ever defended me. Nikki's eyes darted toward her phone on the counter, looking for backup, looking for Damien to tell her what to say. He's not coming to save you, I said. I left him on the couch. It's just you and me. Sister to sister. Tell me the truth. There's nothing to tell. Fine. Then tell me this. I stepped closer and watched her step back. What's the birthmark on his left hip shaped like? Nikki's face went white. For 1 second, she forgot to lie, and I saw the answer in her eyes before she covered it up. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You know exactly what I'm talking about because you've seen it. You've touched it. You've been close enough to my husband's body to know things only his wife should know. He showed me a photo once. It was a joke. Damien has never taken a photo of that birthmark in his life. He's self-conscious about it. He barely lets me see it. I laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to me. But you know what it looks like because you've been in bed with him. How long, Nikki? How long have you been sleeping with my husband in the apartment I pay for? She didn't answer. She just stood there with her arms wrapped around herself and tears starting to form in her eyes. The same tears she'd used 100 times to get out of trouble. The same performance she'd been running since we were kids. I'm done, I said. Your rent payment stops today. Your car insurance stops today. Everything I've been paying for stops today. You want to take my husband? Fine. But you're going to do it without my money. Carissa, wait. You can't just cut me off. I don't have anywhere to go. Should have thought about that before you decided to destroy my marriage. I walked out and slammed the door behind me. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my keys. I sat in my car for 5 minutes just breathing, just trying to process what I'd confirmed. My husband. My sister. In my house, on my money, behind my back. And they still expected me to stay home while they played happy couple at his reunion. That's when the idea hit me. Damien wanted to bring my sister as his fake wife. Fine. Then I'd bring his brother as my date. Jackson. The one who'd done everything right while Damien floated through life on charm and other people's money. Jackson had started his own business at 25. He owned his house outright. He'd offered Damien a job 3 different times, and Damien had turned him down each time because he said he couldn't work for his brother. The truth was Damien couldn't stand being around someone who made him look bad just by existing. They barely spoke anymore. Jackson came to Christmas and Thanksgiving, and that was it. He was always polite to me at family events, and that was enough to convince me to go through with this. I'd walk into that reunion on Jackson's arm and watch Damien's face when he realized his wife showed up with the one person he could never measure up to. I pulled out my phone and found Jackson's number. We'd exchanged contacts years ago, but never actually texted. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing. Hi, Jackson. This is Carissa. I know this is random, but I need a favor. A big one. Can we meet tomorrow? Please don't tell Damien I reached out. I hit send before I could talk myself out of it. A minute passed, then 2. I was about to start the car when my phone buzzed. Is everything okay? I typed back. No. That's why I need your help. 3 dots appeared. Then his response came telling me to meet him for coffee tomorrow morning. Jackson met me at the coffee shop the next morning and listened to everything without interrupting once. When I finished, he didn't tell me I was crazy. He didn't make excuses for his brother. He just asked what I needed. And what I needed was simple. Damien had spent 10 years making me feel invisible. He'd spent months sneaking around with my sister while I paid for their lives. Now I was going to make him feel exactly what I felt. Paranoid. Jealous. Desperate for answers he wasn't going to get. Jackson was happy to help. The next morning I was putting on mascara when Damien appeared in the bathroom doorway. You're up early. His eyes moved over my outfit. The nice blouse. The jewelry I never wore anymore. Where are you going? Coffee with Jackson. The name landed like a grenade. His whole body went rigid. Jackson was the one person in the world who made Damien feel like nothing. Their parents had spent 30 years comparing them, and Damien lost every single time. Jackson built a company while Damien couldn't keep a cashier job. Jackson owned his house while Damien lived in mine. Every family dinner reminded him he was the disappointment and he'd hated his brother for it since they were kids. Cancel it. I kept applying mascara. No. I wasn't asking. He stepped into the bathroom and grabbed my phone off the counter before I could stop him. What's his number? I'll cancel it myself. Give me my phone, Damien. Or what? He held it above his head like we were children fighting over a toy. What are you going to do about it? I set down my mascara and looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I'd given 10 years to. This man who couldn't even let me have coffee without throwing a tantrum. I'm going to walk out of this house. I'm going to meet your brother. And when I get back, you're going to give me my phone and apologize for acting like a child. I grabbed my keys off the counter. Keep the phone. I'll get a new one. His arm dropped. Carissa, wait. I didn't wait. Jackson was already at the coffee shop when I arrived. He stood when he saw me and pulled me into a hug that lasted longer than it should have. He smelled expensive, clean. Nothing like Damien's cheap cologne that had irritated my nose for a decade. You okay? He asked as we sat down. You look upset. Your brother took my phone hostage because I wanted to have coffee with you. Jackson's jaw tightened. That sounds like him. Does it? Because for 10 years I thought I was married to a reasonable person. Turns out I was married to a toddler who throws fits when he doesn't get his way. He's always been like that. He just hides it well at first. Jackson slid a coffee across the table. I ordered your usual. Hope that's okay. How do you know my usual? You've ordered the same thing at every family gathering for 5 years. Vanilla latte, extra shot, oat milk. He shrugged. I pay attention. Something in my chest cracked open. Damien didn't know my coffee order. We'd been married 10 years and he still asked me every single time like the information wouldn't stick. I told Jackson everything. The proposal story, the almost kiss on the couch, the birthmark slip, the way Damien had been gaslighting me for months while carrying on with my sister right under my nose. By the time I finished, my coffee was cold and my voice was hoarse. I want him to feel what I felt, I said. Paranoid, jealous, going crazy wondering what's happening. How? I need you around. Pick me up for dinners. Text me when he's watching. Make him wonder. Jackson was quiet for a moment. His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. I'm in, he said. Whatever you need. When I got home 3 hours later, Damien was sitting in the dark living room like a horror movie villain. 3 hours. His voice was flat. You were gone 3 hours. We had a lot to talk about. About what? About me? About how terrible I am? Not everything is about you, Damien. I held out my hand. Phone. He pulled it from his pocket and threw it at me. Actually threw it. I caught it against my chest. There's your precious phone. Check your messages. I'm sure Jackson's been texting you nonstop like the desperate loser he is. The only desperate person in this room is you. I walked past him toward the stairs. I'm taking a shower. Try not to have a meltdown while I'm gone. The first dinner with Jackson was on Friday. I wore the black dress Damien said was too much for a Tuesday. Did my hair the way I used to before I stopped trying. When I came downstairs, Damien stood up so fast his chair fell over. No, absolutely not. Yes, absolutely yes. You're not leaving this house dressed like that to meet my brother. Watch me. He grabbed my arm, hard. Hard enough that I knew there would be bruises tomorrow. I said no. And I said yes. Let go of me. Make me. I looked at his hand on my arm, then at his face. Then I screamed. One loud, sharp scream that echoed through the house and probably reached the neighbors. He let go instantly. What the hell is wrong with you? Nothing. I just wanted to see how fast you'd release me if you thought someone might hear. I smoothed my dress. Now you know. And now I know exactly how to handle you. Jackson's headlights swept across the window. I walked out without looking back. Dinner was incredible. Not the food, though, that was good too. The conversation. The way Jackson asked about my work and actually listened. The way he remembered details from years ago that Damien had never bothered to learn. The way he looked at me like I was someone worth looking at. Friday again? He asked when he dropped me off. Friday again. The second dinner was even better. We closed down the restaurant talking about everything and nothing. He kissed my cheek when he walked me to the door and I felt it for hours afterward. The third dinner was when everything changed. I came home at midnight expecting Damien to be pacing or sulking or throwing things. Instead, I found him on the couch with Nikki curled up against his side. Her shoes were off. Her head was on his shoulder. They were watching a movie like this was completely normal. Oh hey. Damien didn't even look at me. How was your date? I stood in the doorway trying to process what I was seeing. What is she doing here? Nikki? She came over to keep me company, since my wife is never home anymore. Nikki finally looked at me. No guilt on her face, no embarrassment, just a smug little smile that made me want to cross the room and slap it off. You don't mind, do you? She asked. Damien was lonely. I figured someone should be here for him since you're always running off with Jackson. Get out of my house. Excuse me? You heard me. Get out. Nikki laughed. You can't kick me out. This is Damien's house too. No, it isn't. His name isn't on the deed. His name isn't on the mortgage. His name isn't on anything because he hasn't worked in 3 years. I dropped my purse on the table. So I'll say it again. Get out of my house. Damien finally stood up. Don't talk to her like that. Like what? Like she's the woman sleeping with my husband? Nobody's sleeping with anybody. He moved between me and Nikki like he was protecting her. We're friends. That's all. Just like you and Jackson are friends, right? The hypocrisy was so thick I could taste it. You're seriously doing this right now? After everything you said to me about Jackson? After grabbing me and screaming at me and calling me desperate? That was different. How? Explain to me how this is different. Because I'm not trying to hurt you. He stepped closer. Everything I've done has been about protecting our marriage. You're the one running around with my brother trying to humiliate me. Protecting our marriage? I laughed. Is that what you call rehearsing your fake wedding with my sister? Using our proposal story for her? Almost kissing her on our couch? Nikki stood up from the couch. That's not what happened. Really? Because I watched it happen, Nikki. I stood in that hallway and watched him lean into you like you were a magnet and he couldn't help himself. You're being dramatic. It was rehearsal. Rehearsal for what exactly? Last time I checked, couples don't almost kiss during practice unless they want to actually kiss. Maybe if you paid more attention to your husband, he wouldn't need to practice with someone else. The words hung in the air. Nikki's eyes were hard. No sisterly love there. No guilt. Just cold satisfaction at finally saying what she'd been thinking. There it is. I nodded slowly. That's what you really think, isn't it? That this is my fault. That I drove him to you. I didn't say that. You just did. Damien put his hand on Nikki's arm. Gentle. Protective. The way he used to touch me before he stopped pretending I mattered. Carissa, you need to calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. You invited my sister into our home to make me jealous, and now you're standing there holding her arm like she's the victim. I looked between them. How long? How long what? How long have you two been sleeping together? And don't lie to me. I already know about the birthmark. Nikki's face went pale. She looked at Damien. He looked at the floor. That's what I thought. I grabbed my purse off the table. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. When I wake up tomorrow, she better be gone. You can't just kick her out, Damien said. I can do whatever I want. It's my house, remember? I started toward the stairs, but Nikki's voice stopped me. You think you're so much better than everyone, don't you? Her voice was shaking now. With anger. With something else I couldn't name. The successful attorney with the big house and the fancy career. You've always looked down on me. Always treated me like I was less than you. I turned around slowly. I paid your rent for 2 years, Nikki. I paid your car insurance. Your phone bill. I gave you $3,000 last Christmas because you said you were struggling. I stepped closer. And the whole time you were sleeping with my husband and laughing at me behind my back. I wasn't laughing. Then what were you doing? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you took everything I gave you and used it to steal my life. I didn't steal anything. You were never going to lose him. Her voice cracked. He was always going to stay with you. The money, the house, the stability. That's what he wants. I was just the one he actually loved. The confession hit me like a truck. Not because it hurt. Because it didn't. Because somewhere along the way, I'd stopped caring whether Damien loved me. I just wanted him to pay for what he'd done. Loved. I repeated the word back to her. Past tense. Nikki blinked. What? You said loved, not loves. Loved. I looked at Damien. Is that true? Did you love her? He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. Damien. Nikki's voice was small now. Tell her. I don't know what you want me to say. Tell her you love me. Tell her I'm not just some mistake. Tell her what you told me when we were alone. Damien ran his hand through his hair. That nervous gesture he did when he was cornered. Nikki, this isn't the time. Then when is the time? She already knows. Everyone already knows. Nikki grabbed his arm. Tell her. He pulled away from her. Actually pulled away. I need some air. He walked out the back door and into the yard, leaving Nikki standing in the middle of my living room with tears streaming down her face. He loves me, she whispered. He told me he loves me. Men say a lot of things, Nikki. Especially when they want something. I watched her crumble. Watched the reality hit her that she was never going to be his wife. That she'd thrown away her relationship with her sister for a man who couldn't even say he loved her out loud. How does it feel? To realize you were just the other woman this whole time? That's not what I was. That's exactly what you were. The exciting secret. The forbidden fruit. The reason he could tolerate being married to me. I picked up my purse. But secrets don't stay secrets forever. And now he has to choose. Do you really think he's going to pick you over everything I provide? Nikki didn't answer. She just stood there crying while I walked upstairs to the guest room. I pulled out my phone and texted Jackson. She was here when I got home, curled up with him on the couch like she belonged there. His response came in seconds. Are you okay? Better than okay. He just showed me exactly who he is. And she just realized she was never going to win. What happened? She told me he loved her. He couldn't even say it back. Just walked out of the room and left her standing there crying. He's a coward. He's worse than a coward. He's a man who doesn't know what he wants and destroys everyone around him trying to figure it out. Dinner tomorrow? I smiled at my phone in the dark guest room. I could hear Nikki's car starting in the driveway. Hear Damien's footsteps on the back porch. Hear the muffled sound of him calling her name as she drove away. Pick me up at 7, I typed back. And Jackson? Thank you. For being the one good thing in all of this. Always. Damien begged Nikki back within 48 hours. I heard him on the phone promising her everything would be different, promising the reunion would prove how much she meant to him. He thought I didn't know they'd patched things up. He thought I didn't see her car parked 2 streets over when she snuck in through the back. He thought he was being clever. They both did. The reunion was tomorrow night. They had their plan, their rehearsed story, their matching outfits. What they didn't know was that I had a plan too, and mine was going to burn theirs to the ground. 2 days later, I was folding laundry when I heard Damien's voice drifting up from the backyard. I moved to the window and watched him pace by the fence with his phone pressed to his ear. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But Nikki, please. The reunion is in 5 days, and I need you there. A pause. Because you're the only one who understands. Because I love you. I was just too scared to say it in front of her. There it was. The confession he couldn't give when she was standing in our living room crying. He saved it for the phone call where he thought no one was listening. Friday night. I'll pick you up at 6. Wear the green dress we picked out. Another pause. Then softer. I promise this time will be different. After the reunion, everything changes. You'll see. He hung up and I stepped back from the window before he could look up. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They hadn't shaken in weeks. Something had hardened inside me since that night Nikki drove away crying. Something cold and patient and ready. I picked up my phone and texted Jackson. They're back together. He just told her he loves her. His response came in seconds. Are you okay? I'm perfect. The reunion is Friday. Pick me up at 7. What's the plan? I smiled at my phone. You'll see. Friday arrived fast. I spent the afternoon getting ready. Hair done at the salon Damien said was too expensive. Nails painted the red he said was too bold. Makeup done by a professional because tonight I wasn't just showing up. I was making an entrance. The dress was new. Black. Cut low enough to turn heads and high enough to stay classy. I'd bought it with the credit card Damien didn't know existed. The one I'd opened when I first started suspecting something was wrong. Jackson picked me up at exactly 7. Charcoal suit. Perfect hair. The kind of man who made other men feel small just by standing next to them. When I opened the door, his eyes moved over me slowly. You look incredible. I know. I grabbed my clutch off the table. Ready to crash a party? The reunion was at a hotel downtown. Chandeliers, valet parking, waiters with champagne on silver trays. Through the windows, I could see the crowd. Damien's old classmates in their nicest clothes trying to prove the last 10 years had been kind to them. You sure about this? Jackson asked as he handed his keys to the valet. I've never been more sure of anything. We walked in together. His hand on the small of my back, my chin up. The room was packed with people I'd never met telling stories about a version of my husband I didn't recognize. The confident, popular guy who had everything figured out. The man who married the beautiful Nikki and lived happily ever after. I spotted them before they spotted me. Damien in the suit I'd bought him for our anniversary. Nikki in the green dress they'd rehearsed. Her hand was on his arm and she was laughing at something one of his friends said. Playing the part of the perfect wife just like they'd practiced in my living room. Then Damien looked up. His face went through 5 emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, horror, panic. And then something that looked a lot like fear when he realized who was standing next to me. Carissa? His voice cracked on my name. Hey, honey. I smiled wide enough for the whole room to see. Surprised? The crowd around them went quiet. People turned to look. Whispers started spreading like fire through dry grass. What are you doing here? Damien's voice was barely above a whisper. I'm meeting my husband's old friends. Isn't that what wives do at reunions? I looked at Nikki. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt something? Nikki's face had gone pale. She was staring at Jackson like she'd seen a ghost. Who's this? One of Damien's friends stepped forward. Big guy. Friendly smile. Completely oblivious to the bomb that was about to go off. I don't think we've met. I'm Carissa. I extended my hand. Damien's wife. His actual wife. The one he's been married to for the last 10 years. The friend's smile faltered. I thought Nikki was. His wife? That's funny. Because Nikki is my sister. And she's been sleeping with my husband for the past year while I paid her rent. The whispers turned into gasps. Damien grabbed my arm and tried to pull me away from the crowd. Carissa, stop. You're embarrassing yourself. No. I pulled my arm free. I'm embarrassing you. There's a difference. Who's he? Another friend pointed at Jackson. Why is he here? This is Jackson. Damien's brother. The successful one. The one your friend here has been jealous of since they were kids. I looked at Damien. Should I tell them why you hate him so much? Or should I let them figure it out? Carissa, please. Damien's voice was desperate now. Can we talk about this somewhere private? Private? You've been lying to these people for 10 years. You told them you married the prettier sister. You told them Nikki was your wife. You used our proposal story for her. I turned to face the crowd. Does anyone here want to see pictures from our actual wedding? Because I have them on my phone. Hands went up. People crowded around. I pulled up photo after photo. Me in the white dress. Me and Damien at the altar. Me cutting the cake while Nikki stood in the background as a bridesmaid. That's Nikki. I pointed at the screen. The woman he's been parading around tonight as his wife. My sister. My maid of honor. The woman I trusted more than anyone in the world. Nikki finally found her voice. Carissa, this isn't what it looks like. Really? Because it looks like you're wearing the dress you rehearsed in my living room. It looks like you're holding my husband's arm. It looks like you came here tonight planning to pretend you were me. I stepped closer to her. How does it feel, Nikki? To finally get what you wanted and have it blow up in your face? I never wanted to hurt you. Then what did you want? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you wanted my husband, my life, my proposal story, everything that was mine. He told me you didn't appreciate him. He told me your marriage was over. He told me you were just staying together for convenience. And you believed him? I laughed. The man who can't hold a job? The man who lives in my house and drives my car and hasn't paid a bill in 3 years? That's the man you trusted to tell you the truth about our marriage? Nikki looked at Damien, waiting for him to defend her, to say something, to do anything. He didn't. Damien. Her voice was small. Tell them. Tell them what you told me. Nikki, He ran his hand through his hair. That nervous gesture. That coward's tell. I think we should all just calm down. Calm down? Nikki's voice rose. You told me you loved me. You told me after the reunion everything would change. You told me we were going to be together. The crowd was eating this up. Phones were out. People were recording. Damien's carefully constructed lie was crumbling in real time and everyone was watching. Is that true? The big friendly guy stepped forward again. Damien? You told us you and Nikki had been married for 10 years. You showed us pictures. You talked about your honeymoon. I can explain. Then explain. I crossed my arms. Explain to your friends why you've been lying to them. Explain why your actual wife is standing here with your brother while your mistress wears the dress you picked out together. Explain why you're such a coward that you couldn't even tell the truth to people you've known since high school. Damien opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Nothing came out. Jackson stepped forward. Put his hand on my back. I think we're done here. Almost. I reached into my clutch and pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying all night. One more thing. I handed it to Damien. He stared at it like it might bite him. What is this? Open it. His hand shook as he tore the envelope. Pulled out the papers inside. Read the first line. His face went gray. Divorce papers. I smiled. My lawyer drew them up last week. You have 30 days to respond. Carissa, wait. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can. No. I cut him off. We can't. Because I don't want to work it out. I don't want counseling. I don't want to spend another minute of my life with a man who told everyone he married the prettier sister while I paid for everything he owns. I turned to Nikki. And you. I hope he was worth it. Because you just lost your sister. Your rent payments. Your car insurance. Everything I gave you because I thought family meant something. I shook my head. Good luck figuring out how to survive without me. Jackson took my hand and we walked toward the door. The crowd parted for us. No one tried to stop us. No one defended Damien. They just watched as his entire world collapsed around him. At the door, I stopped and looked back one last time. Damien was still holding the divorce papers. Nikki was crying. His friends were staring at him like they'd never seen him before. By the way, I called out. The house is in my name. So is the car. So is everything. You have until the end of the month to get your things out. I walked out into the cool night air with Jackson beside me. The valet brought the car around. Jackson opened my door and I slid into the passenger seat. How do you feel? He asked as we pulled away from the hotel. I watched the building shrink in the side mirror. Thought about everything I'd just done. Everything I'd just destroyed. Everything I was about to build in its place. Free, I said. I feel free. Damien moved out 3 weeks later. I watched from the bedroom window as he loaded boxes into a rental truck. Not his car because that was in my name. Not with help from his friends because most of them stopped returning his calls after the reunion. Just him alone in the driveway carrying the pieces of a life he'd spent 10 years pretending to deserve. He knocked on the door before he left. I opened it but didn't let him inside. I just wanted to say goodbye, he said. His eyes were red. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. And that I'm sorry. For everything. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Damien? That I forgive you? That I hope you find happiness? I leaned against the doorframe. I don't. I hope you spend the rest of your life remembering what you threw away. I hope every time something good happens to you, there's a little voice in the back of your head reminding you that you don't deserve it. He flinched like I'd hit him. You've changed. No. I just stopped pretending to be someone I'm not so you could feel better about yourself. I stepped back and put my hand on the door. Goodbye, Damien. I closed it before he could respond. Nikki called me twice that first week. I didn't answer. She left voicemails asking if we could talk, asking if there was any way to fix things between us, asking if I could at least keep paying her rent until she figured things out. I deleted them without listening past the first few words. A month later, she showed up at my door. I saw her through the peephole and didn't open it. She stood there for 10 minutes knocking and calling my name before she finally gave up and left. 2 months after that, I heard through a cousin that she and Damien had tried to make it work. Moved into a tiny apartment together on the bad side of town. Damien got a job at a warehouse making $12 an hour. Nikki picked up shifts at a restaurant where the tips barely covered gas. The dream life they'd rehearsed in my living room turned into screaming matches about bills and whose turn it was to buy groceries. They broke up before their lease was even signed. Nikki moved back in with our parents. Damien disappeared somewhere nobody bothered to track. Jackson and I took things slow. Dinners turned into weekends. Weekends turned into trips. The trip to Italy I'd always wanted finally happened. We spent 2 weeks eating pasta and drinking wine and not talking about Damien once. 6 months after the reunion, Jackson asked me to move in with him. I said yes without hesitating because I knew he actually wants me for life.